So, John Wick, Chapter 3, Parabellum. John Wick, as they would say in the trailer. Now, the thing about, after, 3 films, John Wick has kind of become this kind of, prolific action figure. I mean, both within, pop culture. I mean, they've had, the character in, Fortnite and stuff like that. Even within the very universe that John Wick exists, he's seen as, this unstoppable force. I mean, we saw him in, the last chapter, where he was able to just take out, just dozens upon dozens of hitmen, and here in this film, it looks like he's going up against millions and millions of hitmen. That it seems almost, self-aware. There's a moment, there's a break in the action here, similar to the second chapter, where one killer was after John Wick this whole time, and they kind of call a little bit of a truce. And the assassin basically says, oh man, you're the John Wick. That's you. And then, the dog comes up, it's wait a minute, is that the dog? Oh, it's the John Wick. So he's got these big fans. And there are other moments throughout the film where others are kind of recognizing that, oh man, Wick is so awesome. He's so cool. He's the best killer. He's unstoppable. No one can stop him. And he just keeps on going, keeps taking hit after hit, keeps getting stabbed, keeps getting shot, just keeps on going. Just keeps on going. Now, as much as, you'd like to look at that and you'd like to think, oh, well, the film is, so full of itself for giving Keanu Reeves this huge vehicle for him. Damn it, you can't get mad at it. It still delivers. It still manages to wow for what essentially for most of the film just kind of seems to be the same ordeal as Chapter 2. We're still deeply engaged in the criminal underworld of assassins. You might remember the second chapter ended with John Wick once again getting revenge. Keanu Reeves, after feeling like he's been betrayed, he goes off and gets revenge, and then because of that, he has the whole criminal underworld after him. And when I mean the whole world, I mean it seems like the entire world wants to kill John Wick. They kind of alluded to it at the end of the second chapter, but yes, the entire world is trying to kill John Wick. Is it ridiculous? You better believe it's ridiculous. But this is where the brilliance of the film lies. The brilliance of it is that, and this is going to be the same criticism that a lot of people had of Mad Max Fury Road. It's just a series of action sequences. It's just, it's a little bit of underground, assassin politics here. It gets a little bit more intriguing because you have, the Bowery, the kind of the underground hobos, and you have the pristine and proper continental people, and they're being questioned by the higher ups, the high table, saying why haven't you been able to kill John Wick? And so Wick might find himself with some allies. And Wick is still trying to clear his name. He's trying to find his way to get the proper revenge that he wants, because he feels like he hasn't quite gotten it yet. But let's face it, it's just action scene after action scene after action scene. And on that level of just being just nothing but nonstop action, akin to something like The Raid, you can't fault the film. I mean, it looks gorgeous. The fight choreography is insanely good. But it's also... But it still has this great cleverness to it, too. We're so used to this kind of, style and this sort of, dry wit that comes out of John Wick that it just makes every scene he's in so much more interesting and so engaging and frenetic, and you get so into it. Pretty much any location he finds himself in, he finds himself doing battle with anything he has. At one point, he's in a library. Oh, well, all he needs is a book. Just one big book, and that's all he needs to just go to town on a whole room of people. At one point, he stumbles into a horse stable. Hey, horses can kick pretty good. We can have something like that. And then at one point, he stumbles into a whole room of knives. Just nothing but knives, just all over the place. And you better believe that he's going to take every single one of those knives and use them incredibly well as either the world's best or worst knife thrower, however you want to look at it. But it goes the extra lengths of brutality because I think this film kind of knows that it really has to amp itself up. It knows that, okay, we're in the third film of this saga, and, it's just been nothing but pure action throughout, and it knows that we got to stack the deck. We got to make things more vicious. We got to make stuff more over the top, more violent, more bloody. And so it ramps it up. Not only ramps up the violence, which is insanely good, like that scene with when he's in the whole room of knives. It's completely savage. It's Oh man, you got to be in the theater to see everyone's reaction to this. It is just over the top. You're not sure whether to wince or just or laugh at just how over the top it is. But at the same time, it's also it's brilliantly staged too. Like you have gorgeous sets here. You have lots of great staging here. There's a great scene where they're on motorcycles with swords, just duking it out. There's great scenes within like the Continental where they have this entire room of glass. And at first I thought, okay, well, in chapter 2 we did have like the scene with the Hall of Mirrors. That was a cool sequence. But are they just gonna repeat themselves here with just the reflections and stuff like that? And not I was kind of getting that vibe, but not really. They actually make some great use of it. I think it's cool that this huge glass room is also like it's 2 levels, so you can have people like smash through the glass and so like I said, this film makes great use of every single location. So in other words, if they're in a whole room of knives, they're going to use every knife. If they're in a whole room of glass, they're going to break as much glass as they can. They go for it in every single scene. Yeah, and I love how they just they essentially just overdo it. You have a great supporting cast here. The one supporting cast member we do have to talk about, the newest addition and the most interesting addition, is Halle Berry, playing an assassin similar to John Wick in that she left this world behind. But she's willing to help John Wick because he's got his connections. Like, that's the thing. Like, we established very early that Wick kind of has like a bit of a contingency plan for what happens when he knows he's being hunted down. And he seeks like Sophia, who Halle Berry is playing, for help. And Sophia is definitely his kind of girl. There's not really a romance here, but it seems like if anyone that he'd hook up with after his wife, it'd probably be her. Mainly because she has 2 dogs who are very adept at killing. So they have like a brilliant little kind of like, I guess you could think of it as kind of like the centerpiece here, because you have both Keanu Reeves and Halle Berry just shooting up as many people as possible. It has the highest body count of any scene in the film. And the dogs attack like incredibly well. There's one scene where a dog literally just scales up Halle Berry's back, climbs up a wall, and just savages like one of the gunmen. So yes, this is the John Wick film where the dogs fight back. Yes. Yeah, dog gets murdered in the first John Wick film, and that sets him off. Well, here the dogs get their revenge. Nothing bad's gonna happen to these dogs. Nothing. But then we got to talk about the rest of the returning cast. Still great here. Lawrence Fishburne is the pompous Bowery king who's all about theatrics and just kind of laughs in the face of danger and death and just is having way too much fun in this film. You have Angelica Houston as the director of kind of this Russian organization that's based in a little ballet theater. Which is interesting because like the more I think of, like, when I first described John Wick Chapter 2, I kind of said like it's like an action ballet, and while I was thinking that, I was like, oh well, they end up going to a ballet here. That's one cool thing I like about the film. Every time I feel like it needed a little bit something more, it's like, oh wait, well there it is on the screen. So yeah, Angelica Houston is great in it. Of course, you have the Continental, which is run by the manager, played by Ian McShane, and just Ian McShane is just, man, he's just, for being that age, he's just got this badass sensibility to him. He's so badass, and he barely does anything in the film. He mostly just kind of like sits back and commentates and kind of, talks about the situation, just drinks wine. There's like scenes where there's gunfire going off, and he's just like sitting back, just having wine, because he's just enjoying the spectacle of it all. One person who does get involved with the action, though, is the Continental concierge, Sharon, who's played by Lance Reddick. Lance Reddick, he's a lot of fun. He's one of those like actors who just has this great intimidation to him. And we saw a bit of him in Chapter 2, and we get to see a lot more of him in Chapter 3. He basically teams up with Wick at one point. It's a lot of fun. But the other, like, if you want like a central villain, there's a political villain called the Adjudicator, who's played by Asia Kate Dillon, who's essentially just this kind of like, she's doing an audit of the entire like underground of assassins, saying like, I don't think you're quite doing your job, so maybe they're basically gonna like clean house is what they're planning here. Which isn't really sitting well with them. But the central rival you have, who basically basically, Wick needs a central rival, a central assassin who he's got to kill by the end of the picture, and that is where we get Mark Dacascos, who playing the assassin Zero, who, as I mentioned, is kind of like gushing about Wick. He's excited. He can't wait to get to that big climax where he gets to duke it out with the legendary John Wick. A lot of fun. But before that happens too, there's two other assassins who are also big fans. So big that they're willing to like give Wick a little bit of a handicap, saying like, we don't want to attack you when we're down. We want to get the good kill. So just get back up on your feet and let's get back into the action. And that's where you kind of have to suspend a little bit of that disbelief to enjoy this. And I mean, you pretty much have to. You have to just kind of just accept that there's just that New York City is just crawling with these assassins and killers, that they can just kill people in broad daylight, and there are no cops around, maybe because they bought off the cops. You have to buy that there's like millions upon millions of assassins all after Wick. But if you can buy into that farce, it's a lot of fun. It's gorgeous looking. Every scene within the Continental is just brilliantly beautiful. Like the glass room sequence I mentioned was great. The bridge chase is really cool. The whole scene like with the room full of knives and the library, and at one point they're wandering through Casablanca and they're just shooting up this whole place with Halle Berry and dogs, and it's hard to talk about this film other than just being a complete action spectacle. And like I said, similar to like Chapter 2, it's a very like lean, trimmed down action spectacle. It realizes that, you don't need a whole lot of exposition to weave this story of a killer or an ex hitman trying to get revenge. It realizes that it's a pretty straight story. It doesn't need like like the finest of dialogue. It kind of has like the typical like one-liner cool guy banter dialogue, which comes in like little bursts, and it comes well timed too, to the point where John Wick might get like a good clean kill from one of the assassins trying to kill him, and just before his dying words of the killer he's just killed, they'll say like hey, that was a pretty good fight, wasn't it, Wick? Wick's like, yeah, okay, yeah. So it's absurd. It's brilliantly absurd though, and it's just it's so well choreographed. It just looks so damn good. It's just I think it's becoming like a little bit too aware of itself too, with like with how much they build up John Wick here. Like that, I get the feeling they're gonna have to do something much different with the sequel here, and they do set this up for another sequel, because I mean, why wouldn't they? If they're having this much fun doing this in the film and they still got more ideas, then why not? Why not just keep going with John Wick if it still works? Because I mean, it's still got the magic. It's still got a lot of great stunts. I still love the characters that they bring back here. I think they work well. I kind of like the very. I mean, it's a little bit complex. There's a little bit of like intrigue going on with the criminal underworld, but it's just such a damn good looking film. And it's so well choreographed. Like I said, it's like the action ballet. Sometimes action can just be like kind of like straight mindlessness. It can be too over the top. It can be too gruesome. It can be too giddy. And John Wick is like it's cooked just right. It's trimmed off most of the fat. It presents great spectacle. It's brutal when it needs to be. It's absurd when it needs to be. It's just another fine piece of action filmmaking. And I was kind of thinking like maybe the self-awareness is it's a little bit unwarranted here. Maybe it's getting a little bit too high on its horse here. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought about like how the entire film is assembled, and how much you get to like and know a lot of these characters with very little, and be engrossed in their world without a ton of exposition. It's damn brilliant. I really had a lot of fun with this film. It is everything that I want to see out of an action film here. So, John Wick, Chapter 3, Parabellum. 4.5 out of 5 stars.